Hi, I'm Mike Green. Welcome to my Success is a System podcast. And today we're going to do a course on pitching. And pitching is something we all need to do. We might think of that as something that we only do when we're trying to raise funds, or you see it on Dragon's Den or something like that. But in reality, we're always pitching ourselves. If someone says, "What do you do?" people all too often say, "Oh, I'm a plumber. Oh, I'm an estate agent. Oh, I'm an architect," or something, as opposed to having something that could be a 20-second, a 30-second, a 3-minute explanation that is interesting, engaging, and will connect with people to the point that you might be able to get them as one of your fans or a client or just someone that you can connect with to have an interesting conversation with. So today I want to talk about cracking the pitching code. And I've done this a lot. I used to have an investment platform. I've invested in over 35 startups in the UK, and in doing that, I saw thousands of potential businesses, and I saw some really terrible pitches. I saw some amazing pitches, and I want to share that with you. But the key thing is, if you go for funding like a Dragon's Den or a Shark Tank type pitch, you are only going to have a couple of minutes. Okay. In real life as well, when you go to investment platforms with the big banks or the big funds, you're probably going to be given somewhere between 3 and 8 minutes, but more of them are 3. Less give you more time. Now, that's like seeing a shop window. If you're interested, you might then go into the shop. People don't need more than 3 minutes, a bit like speed dating, to find out if there's enough of an interest to go to the next level. If you know, you know, and if you know you don't want to go in, then you won't go in. No amount of time beyond that 3 minutes is going to then draw you in, and it's painful to watch people just slavishly trying to draw someone in when they just don't want it. So let's talk about cracking the pitching code. We're going to talk about how to pitch yourself in 3 minutes or less, talking about who you are, why you're talking to them at that moment in time. That could be a networking event, it could be in front of funders, it could be in front of a potential client, or it could be for someone who wants to be a client of yours, and you're telling them about you, your business, where you're going, and so on. But today, I'm assuming you haven't pitched before, or if you have, it probably hasn't gone as well as it could have done. Do you know less than 1% of all people who sit in front of a pitching panel for funding get their money? Less than 1%. The vast majority do not get the funds that they're looking for, and they end up having to try and get a bank loan, asking family, selling a house, selling a car, scraping the money together. And whilst that's kind of admirable, the real scaling of a business comes when you can get institutional or high net worth or investor funding. Okay, I'm going to go through this course. It's a course I normally do live with people, so you're not going to get the chance to question me, but my details will be at the end. And if you want to drop me an email, ask some questions, or maybe even have a mentoring session on pitching, or come along to one of my live courses, then do make contact. Equally, if you'd like some of these slides, contact me. I'll happily send them to you. So firstly, let's then look at the next slide and move on. So let me tell you what a Razzle reel is. Let me show you my Razzle reel. It's normally about a minute long, maybe a bit longer, maybe a bit shorter, but it's a great example of how you can get a lot of information into a very short shop window, if you like, or very short glimpse into what you're about or what your business is about, or the messages and strengths that you're wanting to communicate. Let me give you this example here, and you'll see for yourself.
1, 2, 3.
So now let's get into the content, but there's lots of ways to pitch yourself. You can get help with AI now. You can create a Razzle reel. You can do an in-person pitch. You could create a slideshow that is automated. But what you've got to do is try to get the key points that you're trying to communicate to the audience that you're trying to connect with, to express and connect the points that you want to connect to them for them to express an interest or buy from you. Okay, so what makes a perfect pitch? When should you pitch it? What would the perfect pitch include? How long should it last? What should you expect? And what are investors looking for if we assume that that's the what you're going for on this occasion? So let me share with you an example of what one of the best pitches that I ever had. I was speaking several years ago at the Waldorf Astoria in New York. The Grand Ballroom was where the conference was. It's on the 5th floor of this hotel. I was asked to speak by a company called NISO, and I agreed to do it, but I was really busy at the time, and I said, look, I can't get into the States until late at night. I'll arrive at the hotel late. I'll happily speak, but I need to be one of your first speakers, because as soon as I finish, I need to leave. I need to get back on a flight. I need to get back into the UK by that evening. And they said, yeah, that's fine. We'll put you on first mic. And I said, fabulous. I'll grab my bag as soon as I go, and hopefully you'll get some good feedback. And it was very good feedback, thankfully, which I was very grateful for. But on the way out, this a lady called Rosie Jolly, came up to me and said, hi, Mike, can I show you to your taxi? Now, I assumed she was with the organisers, and they'd said, Mike needs to get straight off, show him down to his taxi. And I thought that's very kind, very helpful. And it was a big hotel. It's got side streets, and I wasn't exactly sure where the taxi rank was because I came in late and got dropped off at the front. So anyway, as we go along the 5th floor corridor from the Grand Ballroom to the lifts, I get in the lift, Rosie gets in the lift, the door's shut, and she then launches into a pitch. I didn't even know that she wasn't with the organisers. And she said, my name's Rosie Jolly. I work for this company called Propercorn, and it's run by a couple, it was founded by a couple called Cassie and Ryan. They set this up while they were at university. And essentially, they were eating some popcorn, and they noticed that the flavour was really ingrained in the nooks and crannies of the popcorn. And they wanted flavour. They thought there was an opportunity to get flavour that was more evenly spread. So they come up with an idea to buy a cement mixer, to get a car paint sprayer, to get a perfectly even thin coat, but of all the flavours evenly across all of the popcorn. We think it's the best popcorn in the world, Mike. Let me give you a few bags. I know you've got a long journey back. Try it on your flight back. If you agree with us, we'd love to work with you and speak to you when you're next in London. And boom, ding, the doors of the elevator open. Talk about an elevator pitch. Absolutely spot on. She gave me her card as she walked me to the exit. I tried the popcorn on the way. It was incredible popcorn. They had some really interesting flavors, and that's what it's all about. So many people say, have you got an hour when I can come and see you? Or can you spare me a coffee? And people are looking at their diaries and they're busier than ever. And they're thinking, I don't know, I've got this on, I've got this on, I've got this on. If you can find out where someone's going to be, then you can pitch to them literally in a minute or in a couple of minutes. This same lady went on after she exited Propercorn to run a CBD or cosmetics called Otto, O-T-T-O. And similarly, she didn't mess around when it came to the pitching. She went straight for Harrods as her first customer. Most people would think I'll start as a small customer and I'll build my way up. No, Rosie went straight for Harrods. And you think, how are you going to get that? Well, you know, you can look at LinkedIn. If you put Harrods in LinkedIn, you'll find all the people that work at Harrods. You can find the cosmetics buyer. Then if you find them on Facebook, once you know their name, they'll say things like, I'm really looking forward to going to such and such trade show or X and X awards dinners tonight. And, you know, you could call it stalking. It doesn't have to be stalkerish, but if you're in the right place at the right time with the opportunity to maybe bump into somebody and say, look, have you got 30 seconds or have you got 20 seconds? Can I just buy you a quick drink? Because I'd love to tell you about something that I think will be an amazing product for you or your business. And it can be boom, 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 job done. Stop asking for an hour of people's time or having to go down and sit in front of them. Because if they want it, the 3-minute pitch, they'll ask you to come back or they'll ask you for more information. You're far better to leave people wanting more than have them thinking, oh my God, how much longer is this going to go on for? I wish that they would just wrap it up. And if it goes on too long, they'll probably get blunt and then they'll probably get rude, and your name will be spread as has a bit of a parasite that hounds people. You don't want to be that person. If it's a 1 minute or 2 minute or 3 minute, no one's ever going to call you that, because you make a quick pitch, they're interested or they're not, they can move on, you can move on, no harm done, but maybe amazing business gained along the way. So what have we got here? What's your business? What makes your idea or offer or product so special? What is your differential advantage? I so often say to people, tell me what makes your business, your service, your product better than other people's. And they'll say to me things like, oh, well, we're a bit like Google, we're a bit like Red Bull, but better. And I think, oh, really? How are you better? And if you've got these big companies that you're a bit like, why would I buy you when I've never heard of you? But all of that marketing, all of that brand strength, all of that proven demand is there with those companies. You've got to get that across really quickly. If you can't tell me it when I asked you that question immediately in response, what is it that you're the best at? What's your unique selling proposition? What's your differential advantage? What's your est, if you like? Are you the fastest, the quickest, the tastiest, the cheapest? What's the est that you might bring to that sector, that product range, or that service? Okay. What are the competitive advantages that you could help someone get with your product? Or what competitive advantages would they have? Would you give them some exclusivity, for instance, of your product range, even if it was just for an initial period when you launched? All of these things, the differentiating factors, the value proposition, the market proposition, you need to be able to just build into a 3-minute pitch. If you can't answer questions and you can't get some of that out quickly, succinctly, in a compelling way that makes them interested in a few minutes, then an hour is just going to be a painful elongation of that. Okay, let's look at when's the best time to fundraise. Well, the biggest single reason why most businesses go bust is lack of cash. Okay, 70% of businesses who go bust run out of money. Okay, often they have full order books or lots of potential clients, or they've got a full stock room, or they've got great people. So often it's lack of cash. But what you've got to say is there is good times and there are bad times to fundraise. If you're fundraising when you are desperate, you can't not communicate that. That will ooze from every cell in your body that you are desperate. If you are pre-revenue, then you're selling an idea. You are not selling a product or service, and you've got no proof that it works. So what is the technology or the demand or the ability you have to fulfill and deliver what you say you can do? Okay, what stage of business development are you at? Are you what we call hatchery, where it's just literally the idea, fledgling, you're making starts, but you may be early revenue, in revenue, but pre-profit and so on? Have you proven this concept? If there is a competitor that's out there that's got a name that's proven, how do you benchmark to them? Are you cheaper? In like-for-like sales, if you were sitting on a shelf beside them, would you outsell them? Can you bring something different or better or best relative to that product or that service? And so on. And where can that market go? How big is the whole market? How big is the market in this country or catchment? And how many players are there in there? So what's the kind of ceiling, if you like, of where your product, that category, that concept can be taken? And is there the demand at that point in time? Again, you want to be looking for funding in a period of growth, ideally, not when a market sector or product range is in decline. These are kind of obvious things, and yet people don't consider them when they're in that planning phase, that strategic mapping of when to raise, how to raise, who to speak to, and what hooks to use when they do speak to them. The next big thing, people say, I'm looking for £1 million. And you think, okay, that's fine. How much turnover? Oh, we haven't got any yet, but it's going to be massive. And you say, who's going to buy it? Everybody. And it's like some of these basic questions. You must have seen Dragon's Den. You must have seen Shark Tank. It is embarrassing how unprepared or ill-prepared or the stupidity of some of the questions and the answers to questions that people make. Okay, who gave you your valuation? Is that your best guess? Is that what you would like or want? Where does that come from? In a normal business, most business valuations are a multiple of EBITDA, a multiple of turnover and maybe assets, or a potential and a bit of today and a potential of tomorrow. But there needs to be a methodology that can be defended, argued, and supported by whatever price you have come up with. Okay, what influences your valuation? So for instance, when I worked with Red Bull, energy drinks was a new thing. Okay, all of a sudden when Red Bull was put beside Coca-Cola in fridges, in certain formats, like in petrol stations, when people are often early in the morning are starting their day, having just woken up, or late at night after a long day, in many petrol stations Red Bull outsell Coca-Cola. So we are able to say this outsells Coca-Cola in these formats. Oh, and it commands a higher price because per milliliter it was higher. What have you got that you can share? Have you got anything that makes you different? At the time when Red Bull, to stick with that example, were growing, there were lots of people saying they were energy drinks, they were basically sugar and caffeine drinks, but Red Bull were the only one at the time that had actually had scientific studies done that proved that they had an increase in brain activity and energy, physical energy, within 20 minutes of drinking the drink. So it was a proven concept, if you like. Or does your product or service have a unique technology that nobody else has got access to or has developed yet, or a technology that improves upon a current system or is faster or quicker or cheaper than a current system? If you say you want £1 million, exactly what shareholding is that for? Okay, what are they going to get for their return? How are you going to use that money? How much money are you putting in? All too often people say, oh, I'm not putting my own money in. Okay, will you put a personal guarantee on it at least? If it goes wrong, are you going to put your money in? Are you going to put your house at risk? If I did a combination of loan and equity, I'm not putting my house on line. All these questions that dragons or investors are going to ask, many of them are more about trying to see if you're willing to align your risk to their risk. The best thing about entrepreneurs is they see opportunity in everything. The worst thing about entrepreneurs is they see opportunity in everything and they get easily distracted when things go wrong. So I want to know that their risk is aligned to mine, and when things get tough, they'll double down. They won't run away. Okay. And, you know, is that funding all needed day one, hit me now, give me it all, or can I break that down over the year if and when you hit certain thresholds or activity dates along the way? When you get into a business with a funder, people often say, oh, I'm only looking for 20%, I'm still going to own 80%, or I'm going to keep 52% so I've got control. Let me tell you now, control is determined by the shareholders' agreement. Firstly, you've got to have one. It's a bit like marrying someone blind and not having a prenup, and you've got a lot to lose. It might be an awkward conversation at the beginning, but a little bit of awkwardness up front to lock in the right shareholders agreement will save lots of pain and upset later. Okay, I have invested in businesses where I have controlled completely the decisions made in that business with less than 20% ownership, because when I put the money in, I can insist that in a shareholders agreement we put what we call negative controls in there. So we're going to agree a budget, and you have to spend within that budget each year, and if you don't, you can't outbreak that budget without my approval. You can't employ anyone above a certain level without my approval. You can't dismiss any of the key people without my approval. And that's all negative controls that are quite normal in a shareholders agreement. These aren't strange or weird things. And so understanding some of the terms that go in there, are you looking for a cash funder, or are you looking for an active funder? So many people would ask me for money and then assume that I would sit on their board, would give them lots of advice, would introduce them to lots of people. there's a big difference between giving just funds for a return and funds and time. Because I can make more money, I can't make more time. So in many ways, with all entrepreneurs or high net worths or uber high net worths, their time is even more valuable to them than their money, and they will not give you much time. You see dragons, you see Sharks Tank and so on. Even those dragons that invest 99.9% of the little bit of time that they will give to the companies they invest in won't even be them. It will be their finance person, their marketing person, their sales person, their legal person, and so on. And actually, it's always a disappointment to a lot of people, and I've helped 2 companies get funding through Dragon's Den. It's always a disappointment that they never actually get to see the dragon that they was on telly being funded by. Okay, and what protections are in there for investors? Okay. Now, all of this, I'm taking the time to go through all the kind of whys and wherefores and good, bad and uglies, if you like. But we're going to just get to boom, 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 boom. A few key things that you can get into that pitch. If you remember Rosie, what were they doing? The problem was that, popcorn was often a bit chunky in the flavouring. It's like loads of flavour, no flavour, or a lot of flavouring that made it soggy and so on. She got the problem out. She got what they were doing to solve that. She pitched it with energy. She gave me an opportunity to try it, and it was all done in just a couple of minutes. So even though I'm taking you through this and we're spending some time to do that, you've got to then boil down that pitch to incorporate as much of this as you can in that boom, boom, boom. And that doesn't mean speaking at 1,000 miles an hour. It means being clear on the messaging that you're going to give. Big part of that is, what is the problem that you're solving? Okay, what is your service going to make easier for somebody? So do you know that market? Why do you know that the customers will be interested in your product? Why will a customer move from an existing product to a new product, or an existing brand that they're very loyal to a new, unheard of, unknown brand? Okay. Who are you going to get to? So if I was going back to the Red Bull example, for instance, are we looking at supermarkets? Are we looking at convenience stores? Are we looking at pubs? Are we looking at clubs? Are we looking at restaurants? Are we looking at just a pure energy drink? Are we looking to mix it in cocktails? What are the different channels and marketing strategies that we're going to use? So, when you see Red Bull ads, you're not going to see them say this is basically water and 5 spoonfuls of sugar and some taurine to give you a lift, which is a mistake one of their marketing directors once made an after dinner speech, thinking he was being funny, lost his job, big embarrassment. They don't talk about that. No, they show energy, they show extreme sports, and they talk about it gives you wings. Okay, that's the kind of marketing strategies they're using. It gives you wings, it gives you energy, it wakes you up, it makes you feel powerful, if you like, or that you've got the energy to do some of the extreme sports that they often sponsor. Who are you competing with? Why should I give up space of another product for your product, or get rid of a current service provider to take you on as my service provider? And we got to consider each of these things. Okay. A lot of people just think if they're nice, if they're compelling, if they're good looking, if they've got an amazing logo, the can looks good, or the service presentation looks good. It's not about that. It's not about what you want to communicate. It's understanding what their need is. And I remember Gandhi talking about the overthrow of the British government from a much, like 1,000 times less position of strength, but he understood walk a mile in the enemy's shoes. Might sound negative, but it's more about really understanding the customer we're targeting, really understanding the business that is trying to access that customer, and how or why our product or service or system will help them connect more or better or sell to that customer. Who are you talking to? What language do you need to use to talk to those people? And why are you relevant and resonant to your target audience? So there's a difference of target audience for customer, who that product or service is going to be sold to, and then targeting investors as well. Investors, I saw so many pictures when I sat on different investment panels investing in companies like Chargemaster and Shazam and Bolt, some really successful ones. I also had some horrifying failures that I invested in with people who should have been incredible, had massive global jobs, but when they went into business, they just tanked. I'm not going to embarrass them. Failure is necessary, but sometimes the ones you think are going to win, bomb. The ones you think are going to be a punt, fly, if you like. For instance, when I invested in Shazam as a Chargemaster as a seed investor, there wasn't even an electric vehicle in the world. There were hybrids, and it was looking like electric was going to be a big thing. But to be investing in a company that had charging points for all this kind of taking over the world electric was a bit of a punt. Now, there's a lot of luck in there sometimes, but what are the investors looking for? They don't really care about your customer. They don't really care about your product. Sometimes you get investors that do follow environmental things if that's close to their heart, or medical things if that's close to their heart. But a lot of time it's, I always think of the Tom Cruise movie where the strapline is "show me the money." Investors might not outwardly say it, but they're looking for a return. They're looking for a return without having to put a lot of time in. They're looking to try to at least somewhat get an idea of timing. So many companies say it's 3 years, I'll be in, you'll be out, you'll get a great return. We know if someone says 3 years, it's 5 to 7. If they say 5 years, it's 10 or more. But, have they even got an exit plan? Oh, no, we're just going to keep growing. It's going to be amazing. When do I get my money out? How do I get my money out as an investor? And so on. And understanding, we talked about walk a mile in the enemy's shoes. It's the same for customer, understanding that customer journey, but equally understanding that investor journey, what they're looking for, what type of investor are you looking for. If you've got a bit of a risky product, but the returns are high, that'll be a different profile of investor to maybe growth of a solid business that's looking for money to scale to the next level, and so on. So many investors are just sick of hearing, I'm the next Facebook, I'm the next Google, I'm the next Red Bull, I'm the next Aston Martin, and so on. Don't, by all means compare yourself, but if you have got no example of your product, it's not even been built yet, or, you're just fledgling, please don't make comparisons. It's like looking at a 7-year-old boy and saying he's going to be the next David Beckham. Yes, there's a possibility he could be, but there's not much probability that he will be. And investors take a bit of a gamble, but mostly they're looking at the data, and they're looking at the returns, and they're looking at you and your people, and whether they trust that you can deliver those returns with the team that they've got, as well as the product or service that you've got. Okay, so that comes to the point of understanding the difference between your needs and investors' expectations. And I don't really care about your needs. And I know that's harsh, and a lot of investors won't say that. It's like, I want you to do well. I'll be your biggest cheerleader if you do well. But my needs, my family's needs, are more important to me than your needs and your family's needs. And yes, I might not need all the money, but even if I don't need the money, I might have philanthropic. I do have very many charitable interests and philanthropic passions that even if I make more money than I need, I can use that for that. It is so annoying when so many businesses that are dead certs go bust, and 70 to 80% of them do. So there's a little bit of apathy with investors. Oh God, I've heard this so many times. So go through these checklists when you're putting a pitch together. What's your needs? What's their expectations? Talk more about their expectations, less about your needs, and just talk about the functionality of how much you're looking for what percentage of the business, what you're going to use that for, how you're going to execute it, and what return can you and they expect at what stage in the future. Okay, set goal stones, show that you've got a strategic plan. Less than 3% of businesses have a business plan. Less than 3% of businesses have a strategic map, have a marketing plan, and it's all about the systems. Success is not often about an individual. It might seem like it if you look at someone like Elon Musk, but it's the systems, the approach, the discipline, the focus that those people bring, as opposed to them just because they're a bubbly, lovely personality. In fact, if you look at, say, Gates or Jobs or Elon Musk, they're often not that bubbly personality. They are obsessively focused on a goal, a dream, a system, a product, and their ability to deliver and fine tune as they go along to do that. How are you going to communicate with me? How often are you going to communicate with me? I want feedback. All too often I put my money into things and I had to chase it every month, every quarter. And the more I needed to chase it, I knew I was chasing bad news, because if they had good news, they were probably bringing it to me. But if you can get into the habit of telling investors the good, the bad and the ugly along the way, they're more likely to come in on a second round. They're more likely to be supportive of a challenge if they were told when it was just becoming a problem rather than when it had turned into a disaster. And in fact, they're probably experienced people who could have helped turn it around at the problem stage, even if they're a bit pissed off that they've got to jump in and help and support. But they often have the skill or the network contacts or the processes or the systems or the people even that they can put in to help you. Don't hide the problem. Sweeping it under the carpet does not clean it up. Okay, then we get into the pitch now. We're working through all of these things that I want to get into your head, all of these things that you can stop at any slide and you can write down, okay, what's your compelling pitch deck if it's a presentation? To me, the best pitches aren't even presentations. There may be a little handout, a couple of things. If you're going to do some slides, a couple, but I want to be engaging with the person. I don't want them to focus on a slide or an A4 paper looking down. People do business with people they like, know and trust. The more it can have no support material but lots of hook, so the pitch deck can be hooks along your conversation, or can literally, look, let me show you on the phone, we got this is our product, or let me show you how easy this works, or how can I meet you at a certain shop where they're selling it, we can speak to the manager, we can speak to the staff, and so on. The more live, the more real the environment, the more likely they're going to buy into it. Okay, if you've heard of an elevator pitch, I gave you the example also of Rosie in the elevator giving me that pitch. Okay, elevator pitch, look it up, Google it. The term actually comes because one of the inventors who improved elevators, literally lifts, because there was lots of accidents, he had a double line invention, and his way to pitch that for funding was he built one, he put it in place, he took the investors in the lift, which went super fast, it was super smooth, and he could prove to them, he showed them why it was much safer and had fail safes built in. So, you know, literally a live drive, if you were, of your product, your service. What better way to get them to see, feel, taste, if you like, what that product might be, so that they get to see for themselves rather than a compelling pitch by someone else who they may or may not know. Okay, what's your messaging? Okay, what's the story? And actually people buy into stories. So with Rosie, the story about Cassandra and Ryan and how they went about it, the cement mixer, of course, they then went on to massive commercial scale of turning it and fine spraying it and so on. But the story was part of the compelling pitch. What story have you got about the way that your product or service, or you evolved into your product or service, came about? Who's in your team? Now, people don't invest into businesses. Often they invest into people. I often say I don't mentor businesses, I mentor people. So you might be amazing, but if you want to go cheap on your team, have you got the right people? You might be an amazing marketeer, but have you got a good financial person behind you? Have you got a good marketeer behind you? You might be the most amazing salesperson. Have you got good engineers that can deliver? Or good logistics and supply chain people that can deliver that. So it's your team become a crucial part. If you've got me past that first point of I like the product, I like the service, this person is compelling, then I'm looking at the broader team that are going to have to deliver this thing. Are there skill gaps? How are you going to fill that skill gap? Do you need this investor to bring something? Sometimes I have invested and been a non-exec director along the way. I'm a chairman of some businesses now, so I mentor and chair, or invest and chair, and so on. So it might be that the investor is going to bring a skill gap or an experience gap or credibility to that pitch, and you're asking for that as well as some funding. Okay. The UK, I don't know where you might be listening to this, but the UK has got one of the most attractive, rewarding investment schemes in the world. SEIS, Seed Enterprise Investment Scheme, EIS, Enterprise Investment Scheme, unbelievable. And if you really get to understand them, you can put a lot of money in with very little risk. In fact, don't believe me. You can go on to Gov UK, and if you put SEIS Gov UK, you'll find all the information on it. But let me give you a little video that I created a couple of years ago. The terms are still the same. A little video that is going to tell you about that scheme. Let's click on that right now, and you can have a watch.
Hello, how would you?
Oh, we're going to have to go through an ad first. Sorry for this, but it's only a few seconds.
For individuals looking to invest in early stage and growth businesses. You know that the UK is home to one of the world's most generous schemes for individuals looking to invest in early stage and growth businesses. The government created the Enterprise Investment Scheme, EIS, and the Seed Enterprise Investment Scheme, SEIS, to help smaller, higher risk companies raise finance by offering tax reliefs to investors that reduce their capital risk and make the upside as attractive as possible. Some of the key benefits include income tax relief of up to 50% on your initial investment, exemption from capital gains tax on any gains from selling your shares, further income tax relief at the top rate of income tax for any losses made on the disposal of shares, and unlimited deferral of capital gains. The cumulative effect of these can increase your potential return by as much as 20-fold. What does that all mean in real money? Let's go through some examples, starting with the Seed Enterprise Investment Scheme. To qualify, the company must be unquoted, have 25 or fewer employees, and assets of up to a maximum of 200,000 at the point of investment. Let's assume you're a 45% taxpayer investing £50,000 in an SEIS company. Through the scheme, you get 25,000 of your initial investment back thanks to 50% income tax relief. If the company does well and you sell your shares after it doubles in value, that's a £50,000 net profit as you pay zero capital gains tax under the scheme. That's a tax-free gain of £75,000, a return of 150%. If things don't go so well and the company were to fail completely, you would still have already received £25,000 back initially through income tax relief as before, but you can also claim loss relief on the at-risk capital at the top rate of tax, which is another £11,250. This limits your loss to just 27.5% of your original outlay. You can invest up to £100,000 in an SEIS company each tax year, and the maximum cumulative investment in one company is £150,000 over a 3-year period. The Enterprise Investment Scheme is open to larger businesses with up to 249 employees and £15 million of gross assets. So, while still generous, the reliefs available reflect the lower risk posed by these more established companies. Let's assume once again that you're a 45% taxpayer investing £50,000, this time in an EIS company. This time you get £15,000 of your initial investment back thanks to 30% income tax relief. You also pay zero capital gains tax under the EIS scheme, so if the company does well and you sell your shares after it doubles in value, that's a £50,000 net profit as before. That's a tax-free gain of £65,000, a return of 130%. And if this company were to fail completely, you get £15,000 back through the 30% income tax relief as before, then loss relief on the at-risk capital of 45%, which is another £15,750. This limits your loss to 38.5% of your initial outlay. Of course, there are some conditions. Whether for EIS or SEIS, the company must be an unquoted company, must be a trading company carrying on a qualified trade or have a 90% subsidiary which does so, must have a permanent establishment in the UK, must exist for genuine commercial purposes, as HMRC will carry out anti-avoidance checks. There are some criteria for investors too. You cannot own more than 30% of the shares, directly or indirectly. Paid directors or employees of the company at the time of the issue of shares are normally disqualified from claiming the EIS relief. The government has a wealth of information available on both schemes online. So for full terms and conditions, simply search for EIS and/or SEIS plus Gov UK. As any smart investor knows, success isn't guaranteed. But from my own investing experience, I know that it's possible to achieve returns of more than 10 times the initial capital through EIS and SEIS investing over 3 to 4 years. So if you're thinking about growing your portfolio and would like to find out more about the potential opportunities on offer, please visit the website or connect with me on email.
So, as I was saying there, some amazing returns. And I've had the benefit of seeing some of them, gaining some of them myself with Shazam and Chargemaster, literally from 50 or 100,000 pounds getting millions of pounds of return, zero capital gain. Now there's also risk. A bunch of them didn't make any money, but as you saw, that you can mitigate a big amount of that risk. And actually there's a bit I didn't get into, but if you didn't invest your own cash, if you invested from one of your businesses, there's even more that you can mitigate against that loss. It's definitely something you should speak to your accountant about, or I'll happily speak to you about, or go onto the Gov UK website and find more about. So we're closing in now, we're coming to the end, but what's your presentation, whether that's just verbally in person at a train station. And I've said before to people, listen, I just want 7 minutes of your time. I'll meet you at a train station. I'll meet you while you're waiting for an aeroplane or anything like that. Just give me 7 minutes when you know you're going to be somewhere. You could spare me that time. People are far more likely to say yes if you say 7 minutes, 3 minutes, 5 minutes than have you got an hour to spare sometime. Make it engaging, short, punchy. Agree when you're going to be there, get your pace right. I do speak fast, it's my natural sort of pace and energy. Don't be the person you're not, but if you are quite gentle and quite slow and quite quiet, try to pick it up a little bit, because you want to get that kind of energy, that excitement, that engagement. So be you, but be you at your most excited or most positive or most compelling, if you can do that. Okay. We've talked about all these other things. Leave them with something positive, though. So, the old cliches about tell them what you're going to tell them. I'm here to raise £100,000 for 10% of my business, and I'm looking to make that at least a 5x with a target of 10x within 3 years. Tell them the detail that we talked about, and at the end say, so I'm only looking for a few shareholders, and in fact if I get it all from one, that'd be perfect, but I'm focused, I've got a great team, it's a great product for all the reasons I told you, and I'd love it if you wanted to come alongside me and share on the upside that we're going to get on this journey. So tell them what you're going to tell them what you're looking for, give them the detail, and then tell them again and remind them of what the ask is and the return is. Okay. Be ready to answer questions. So on these pitches, where when I first went to Investors, Cambridge Angels, Discovery Investment Fund, it was about 7-8 minutes that people were given. In the last few years, that has reduced to 3 minutes. There's a great podcast actually that I did, my podcast, but it was great because Oliver Woolley was on it from Investors, like investors, but with an E at the beginning. And he talks about how it's now only 3 minutes because people know in that time whether they're interested. But if they're interested, you will be given a few minutes of questions after the pitch. And you just want to make sure that you know what those objections are likely to be. If you're working with a platform, do some role play, let them groom you into having done that pitch loads of times before. Do it with your family, do it with your friends. Hell, you might find some of them want to invest along the way when you're practicing, but be ready to handle those objections and answer the questions, not the questions you want to give them the answers to. Make sure you stick to answering their question. And a good thing when someone asks a question is to give them the answer and then say, does that fully answer your question? Or have I covered your point effectively? If you ask someone if you've answered their questions, they'll tell you. Sometimes people veer off, or they think, actually, what I want to tell them about is this. A bit like politicians, they never answer a bloody question, do they? Or is it just me that thinks that? But, make sure we do that. And conclude on a positive note. Now, what are the key ingredients? What solution are you delivering? Have you got a USP of a product? Are you, when the microwave come out, what that was able to cook a baked potato in minutes as opposed to hours. You know, when grated cheese came out and people were paying 4 times as much for cheese that was already grated, no one will pay for that, will they? That's stupid, isn't it? Hell, it saves people time. There's a convenience. What is it we're trying to create? What's our solution? How does it deliver against that problem? Okay, proving that stats and research shows that there's a market opportunity, okay, and you've got some kind of competitive advantage over other players in the market. Show them you have got a business model. As I said, only 3% have a business model or business plan. Only 3% have a marketing strategy or a whole business strategy for 3 years. Talk about your team. I've got one of the best engineers. I've got the best salesperson in the country. We've got this marketing agency working with us, and they used to work with Peppa Pig, or they used to work with BP, whatever it is. What are your projections? When are you going to hit certain stages? We're going to be in revenue by then. We're going to be in profit by then. We're going to hit this market at that point. We're going to expand to that market at this point, and so on. And what do you need? How are you going to use it? What's the return? The biggest mistakes that people make is lack of preparation for that pitch, lack of preparation for the questions. They don't really know how they got to their valuation or what they're going to deliver. Okay, they get, look, try the product. I'm an investor. I don't care about the product. I might invest in something I'm never going to use, but if it's a good deal, I might invest in it. Okay. A good example being, I still haven't got an electric car. I don't want an electric car, but I made a huge amount of money out of investing in electric charging points. It was a good investment by a guy called David Martell, who'd already made millions of pounds out of Traffic Master. He was a proven person with a proven team, new tech. This was another tech opportunity. He was easy to back, but so many people focus all on the product and not on why they're the best person to deliver it or what the unique selling proposition of it is. Don't think you're just going to take out all the competition. Talk about why you might be able to steal an edge, or they've missed a little opportunity, or this is a, you know, if you take the Red Bull one I talked about, energy, we had sugar drinks, we had waters, we had juices, we had smoothies. This was energy. It was like a new subcategory that was about performance and brain energy and so on, that hadn't been properly exploited in the soft drinks category before. You know, don't say we're going to get 100 times money. We're doing nothing now, but we'll have £1 million this time next month. You know, make it defendable. If anything, under promise, over deliver. So many people over promise and under deliver. You're almost definitely going to need a second or third funding round. Make sure that you have over delivered on the first one if you want your original investors to follow through into the second and third funding round. And look, these things are here. You can go back over, you can look at those mistakes. Build a strategy. I do have a clear plan. My book, Failure Breeds Success, or you can see it on any of my podcasts or my website, mikegreen with an e.co.uk. But I work on a really simple transition mapping system. Where are you now? What are the metrics? Where do you want to be in 3 years? What are the metrics? What areas are we going to work on? People, finance, marketing, strategy, sales, operations, go to market. What actions and initiatives in each area against each against people? What are we going to do? We got to employ a new COO. We need an incentive scheme to keep them motivated. On a share option scheme to lock them in for the 3 years of this journey. On finance, we're doing this fundraise. That's going to get us to this stage. And year 2, we do a second round. Show that you've built a map that has got those points clearly defined along your journey from where you are to where you want to be. Having a clear map on one page that you can, when people come to that second stage, after you've done your pitch, they're interested in finding out more, take them through that map, take them through that journey, show them that there's a lot more detail behind that first pitch that prove that you're the person who's got a clear direction, clear journey, and clear points along the way that they can see as you deliver them. Okay. Ask questions of them, what they're looking for. Make sure you answer all of their questions. Okay. Don't get involved in opinions. Try to stick to facts. Investors are generally money people, or they have learnt to become money people. They don't want opinions. I think it's great. What do you think? Isn't that lovely? No. Show me the money. Okay, show me the numbers, show me the people, and show me the stats that prove that your product or service is what you say it could be. I said I talk about opinions, and I love the saying, it's a bit crude, it's a bit rude, but opinions are like arseholes. Everyone's got one, most are full of shit. I don't want opinions, I want facts. If you show me the facts, and you show me that you've got the people to deliver, I'm more likely to invest and come with you on your journey. Okay, more information, drop me a note, drop me an email, follow some of my free stuff on socials if you want. I hope you found that useful. Less than an hour. If you go through this and you stop it and you play it and you stop it and you work your pitch out along the way, you keep it really succinct, leave them wanting more, they will be asking for more. It is better to go for 3 minutes and stay 15 if they keep asking you questions or longer than speak for 15 when they lost interest at 3. I wish you outstanding success. I want to hear your stories. Do come back to me, do share, and I'll share your story either on my podcast or with my network, or I'll invite you along. And if you need some help along the way, you know where I am. Thanks very much for your time.